Prynhawn Da, good afternoon, hello, Shamai, welcome to everyone back for another episode of Skomer Live. I'm Lizzie Daly, your host, so pleased to help fill that Skomer-shaped hole inside your heart, give you that weekly puffin fix that you so desperately need, and of course celebrate a wild island which right now has just been doing its own thing while we've all been at home. And of course, this series is in partnership with the Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales, and it's mainly to help support the work of the wardens on the island and of course the trust itself, which goes above and beyond to make sure that life on the island can continue, be protected and be cared for. So you'll see a link whiz past the screen. You know the drill. If you've been here before, hello, say hello, let me know where you're from, but please do try and support this series, which has been put together to really show our support for the lovely people who help protect the island. Now, we've got a corker of an episode coming up, as always. But this week, hopefully with no technical issues this time, this week we've got two live guests. Of course, Maya Rose Craig will be joining us, a young ornithologist. She's very young, but absolutely inspiring woman. We've also got producer Sally Cryer, who is a main producer on a brand new BBC Two come from that. And of course, we'll be joining our wardens live at the end of today to get your questions answered and to learn more about what they've been up to. Now, every week we like to set you a bit of a challenge. Normally it's guess the bill, guess the feet, guess the eggs. But this week we've gone with what happens next. So have a look at this clip. You can see the non-breeding female in there and all the other puffins around this burrow, curiously doing what they do best, as you will know from the live cameras. But let us know what you think happens next. In the comments, we will reveal the answer at the end of this episode. So, a lovely little clip. Could it be a doll? Could it be puffins start breaking out in a fight? Anything happens on these live cameras, as we know. But what else has been going on the island this week? Well, there's been some really lovely sights of those shearwaters. Of course, the largest colony on the planet, everybody, of those Manx shearwaters around the island, just making the most of those turbulent waters there. And of course, dawn and dusk being such a prime time to see so many of these shearwaters right around the island. They create almost a halo as they're going out at dawn and in at dusk before they come inland to breed. They are just incredible, and seeing them in those numbers is even better. What else has been going on? Well, we've got some lovely sights on the island as well. So the puffins are still there, although some early departures at the moment. Razorbills and guillemots have already left the island, which is quite interesting at an early stage. And maybe we'll chat to the wardens about that at the end, because normally July is the time where we'll start to see that extreme fledging. But for them to already be leaving is quite early, so that's quite interesting. What else? Tree sparrows, which, as you know, is very exciting that they're back on the island. Haven't been breeding on the island for about 50 to 60 years, and they are back as a lovely tree sparrow guarding that nest box there. And of course, tree sparrows, their numbers have been declining rapidly. From about 1970 to 2008, the UK tree sparrow population decreased by about 93%. So what a sight, and what a unique place for them to breed on, completely protected. That's incredible. And what else? Less people means more area to roam, if you like. There's this lovely hen pheasant walking around with the chicks, 5 of those chicks there. And those chicks will stay with that hen for a few weeks, of course, leaving the nest just after a few days, but in those few weeks, making the most of that time. So what else have we got? We've also got razorbill chicks, which are very much developed, ready, full, looking healthy, looking strong and ready to fledge as well. And we've got some clips that's been sent in to us by the wardens of this hoverfly, an underestimated family. This one's actually trying to take Nathan's tractor for a bit of a spin. But awful joke, sorry. But actually, hoverflies in the UK, massively underestimated. Did you know we have 270 species of hoverfly here in the UK? They're incredibly important pollinators, and actually behind our wild bees, they're the second most important pollinators that we have here. They are most well known for their fast breeding and short lifespan. Some species lasting for just a few days, others for just a few weeks. But in that short time, they are incredibly important here. Now, have a look at this picture the warden sent. A lovely Manx shearwater chick. We are hoping we're going to go over to our burrow cam and have a look at what's happening in our burrow with our lovely eggs, so Tom the shearwater. But this is what we will be expecting. To give you an idea of scale and size, that shearwater chick is about 40 grams when they're first born. Tiny, tiny, and they develop as fledglings, obviously, to a much bigger size. Sometimes reaching slightly larger than the adults, actually, before they then go and fledge. But lovely to see. Really, really lovely chick there. What else? A very common sight, actually, one that I've seen regularly and you may be seeing in your hedgerows, you get them, is this lovely caterpillar. Have a look at this lovely clip. It's an oak egger moth, which you can see very hairy. Those hairs are really important to be against predators. Of course, they're unpalatable to birds, but actually can be quite irritating for us as well. So try not to touch them. But of course, this species of moth is one of those that overwinters, which means they will stay as a caterpillar onto the second year, and that's when they'll then develop into a moth. So a lovely species, and just really colourful and very, very hairy. Well, what else have we got? Big conditions on the island, very changeable, lots of wind. Sometimes it's hard to do the monitoring when there's this amount of wind, especially on the wick. You've got all those kittiwake colonies as well. And I know that the wardens every week are battling with the weather and the westerlies that come in onto Skomer Island. And of course, the monitoring. We will hopefully next week going to feature a little bit more about the puffins and the monitoring work that goes on here. But it's a lovely clip that Nathan sent in of what it's like to pull a puffling out of a burrow. Now, Sylvia seems to think that they're not as lovely as the shearwater chicks. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below if you think a shearwater chick or a puffin chick is better looking. I'm going to go with Sylvia. I think shearwater chicks are just absolutely fantastic. But of course, the puffins, as they go into that adult plumage, in for the win. I know you guys all love puffins. You absolutely do. Right, every week we feature, of course, our live camera highlights. So let's see what's been going on this week on the island with all the excitement. So there has been, of course, lots of action from our puffins, doing what they do best. Let's be honest, nature taken over. Lovely little oyster catcher captured other species as well on the island and on the cliffs there. So we've got some razorbills, bill clapping. Again, lots of puffins come in and out. Of course, it's a busy time as they're fishing. And we featured gulls, our bigger gulls on the island, predating things like rabbits. But they do actually take a puffin as well. It's not unusual. So the herring gulls, the great blackback gull and the lesser blackbacks also have a go at puffins too. We get some lovely clips of that egg we're so desperate to see now turning into a chick, which should be any day now, fingers crossed. And at this lovely clip of all the puffins sleeping on the island at night time. Remember last week when we had Mike Alexander on talking about how unusual it is for us to understand or know that puffins do actually stay on the island sleeping out of their burrows at night time. That was something we didn't realise. They do this in such large numbers, but because of these live cameras and because of this wonderful series, we've been able to better understand that. There's a research project in there somewhere, absolutely. So let's go over to those live cameras now. Let's see what's going on. Of our favourite places. Let's head over to North Haven first. We've got all those busy burrows. There's been some action this morning from a herring gull's been knocking about. No flurries of puffins, just kind of settling down. It's a very windy day on the island, so it's quite a busy scene there as well. And I highly recommend, if you're new here, it is the best kind of soap opera unraveling before your eyes. Every time of day something different is happening. We've had signs of that non-breeding female as well all morning, popping in and out into that camera. You will recognize her because of that dark face that she's got, that non-breeding bill and those kind of lighter feet, and she often causes a bit of trouble with some of the other puffins as they're defending their burrows as well. We've also are going to have a quick glimpse now at our burrow cam. This is really exciting. We are about to go into a really critical time. It's this week. We thought it was last week. Perhaps it'll be next week. It's around now where, fingers crossed, that shearwater chick will be visible in that burrow very soon. And when that happens, this is when the action really begins. Those parents will take it in turns, feeding that chick, going in and out. You can see slight movements of that shearwater in the top right-hand corner, who is actually incubating that egg currently as we speak. And of course, that other parent will be out fishing right now. So I'm telling you, if you really want drama, this is the camera to keep your eye on. We've been advised by the wardens that it is about to really kick off on that camera very, very soon. We just don't know when. So I'm checking it most mornings, to be honest, just have a quick look to see if there has been any updates. Actually, looking at the camera now, if you are going to run this camera alongside the Skomer Live series, you're watching it, have a look, because she keeps lifting up and turning around and doing that egg turning. So have a little look, because you get glimpses of that egg. Absolutely wonderful. Can't replace it. Now, this week, Yolo Williams, the one and only, every week he comes in from somewhere. He's under a hedgerow, or he's, I don't know, lifting some rocks, or I don't know, exploring the Welsh coast somewhere. I never quite know. But he reports in every week to tell us something that he loves, he feels inspired by Skomer Island, just to kind of check in and inspire us even more with his stories. And this week he's given us a story of extreme fledging. So over to Yolo.
Today I've been asked to talk to you about extreme fledging, and talking of extremes, I've come indoors because the weather's horrendous. It's gale force winds almost, and pouring down with rain, so I've got my shorts and my t-shirt, and it's just not suitable for outside. But anyway, extreme fledging, and it's interesting, isn't it, because I know you've already talked about jumpers, chicks that jump into the sea, encouraged by parents. Razorbills do it, guillemots do it. Guillemots, of course, they're about 3 weeks oldish when they jump off, and then the adult male then escorts them out to sea, well offshore, and it'll be another 3 weeks or so before they can actually fly. So you might think, well, that's a bit extreme, isn't it? That's a bit much. Well, it isn't really when you think about it, because most of the bird's enemies are on land on that island. You're talking about birds like the large gulls, the herring gulls, the lesser blackback gulls, the great blackback gulls, buzzards even. So if you can get off that island and sneak off, especially if it's done at night and by first light, you're well offshore, you're actually much safer there being accompanied by your dad than you would be if you were allowed to develop on a small ledge on that island. And Manxies are interesting because Manxies do it very differently. Manxie chicks, they are around sort of 60 days oldish. They're abandoned by the parents. They brood it for the first week, and then they just come in, feed the chick, and then, as I say, for about 60 days they're fed constantly, but then they're abandoned. At this point they're heavier than the parents, but then the parents just leave them and literally starve them out of that burrow, because the chick gradually over the next week or so, 7, 8, 9 days, will lose quite a bit of weight. So he's got to be thinking, well, do you know what, I've got to get out of here, I've got to find food for myself. So what they do is they venture out at night when there are no gulls around, and then they climb. They look for some kind of structure where they can climb up, whether it's a rocky outcrop, whether it's just a big lump of a rock, whether it's humans. I remember a memorable day on Skomer. It was in September about 3-4 years ago, and we went out to film this, and we sat quietly on a rock, and these birds climbed up us, and they've got little claws, and they climb up and use your head to launch themselves off out so that they can get offshore. And it really hurts, especially when you haven't got much hair like I've got. It really hurts then. But they again are just trying to get offshore, and gradually they learn how to feed for themselves. They surface feeders, picking up small fish like that. So yeah, extreme fledging is almost the norm rather than the exception on Skomer. And when you think of the predatory birds you have on the island there, as I mentioned them earlier, especially the great blackbacks, they can be pretty brutal. And a chick, whether you're a razorbill, guillemot chick, or a Manxie chick, or even a puffin chick, you stand no chance. So your best bet is to get offshore, and that's why the vast majority of them try to escape at night and get as far offshore as they possibly can. So if you were thinking of coming back to this world as a seabird, if I was you, I would think again, because I think we humans, we have a pretty easy life all in all. See you next week.
Absolutely wonderful there. He talks about leaping off 30-foot cliffs and jumping on heads to fledge, all of the extreme fledging. Thanks again, Yolo, and we'll be hearing from him again next week. Now, I'm really excited to welcome on our next guest, Sally Cryer. But before I do, we're going to show you just a small snippet of what you can expect from this fantastic brand new series. It's called The Pembrokeshire Coast, A Wild Year. It's going out Friday, the 3rd of July, and it's not one to miss, let me tell you. It is a fantastic, well, from what I've seen, it looks like a really fantastic series. Right now, it's such a great time to have that appreciation and love for a place that's right on our doorstep, and it is beautiful scenes of, you know, people, wildlife, landscape, all put into one with some fantastic time lapses. So here's a little snippet.
The middle of May marks a spectacular event back on Skomer. Bluebells may be blooming countrywide, but only here can you see such an uninterrupted view. They are a magnet for visitors over the May bank holiday. And of course, they get to see the puffins too. Most seem fairly happy to pose for a photo. But there's always one who's a bit bashful.
I mean, look at that. Isn't that fantastic? And we are actually very lucky to have Sally Cryer, producer of the series, on with us right now. Sally, hello.
Hi, Lizzie.
Oh, honestly, I'm really excited to see it. It's a series which I think is going to touch so many people because it's, like I say, right here on our doorstep. But tell us more about the series itself. What can we expect to see?
Okay, so there are 3 programmes, in fact, and Pembrokeshire Coast kicks off the series. The other 2 are different regions of the British Isles. So one's on the North Yorkshire Moors and one's on the Fens of East Anglia. And I think there was a programme about 4 years ago on the Lake District, and it's very much in the same vein. What we're trying to do is get places around the British Isles that many people go to, but see for a very brief period of time. And what they don't understand or always get to see on their brief visit is how life works for the people that live in these areas, live in these regions, and they're often rural. And like the Pembrokeshire Coast, the people that live there and the wildlife are all slightly sort of subject to the seasons. And throughout the year, it's a sort of time where they've got to get their timing right. So, you know, if you're growing Pembrokeshire earlies, you've got to know when is the right time to plant. If you're out fishing, like Jono is fishing for crab, he's got to know when the spider crabs move up from the south. Puffins on Skomer, they need to know when to get back to the island to start nesting.
Absolutely. And I just love that because we here in Wales, in fact in the UK, we're so intrinsically linked with our coasts. You know, so many of us live on our coast and connected to it in some way or another, whether it's for just a passion for it or for work. But okay, I'm going to ask you, because obviously I love Pembrokeshire and Skomer Island, but what was your favourite thing about kind of filming in Pembrokeshire and on the island?
Well, I mean, actually filming in Pembrokeshire, I made 28 trips to Pembrokeshire in total.
Wow.
Over 2 years, because we obviously had to film through the seasons. And some of it, I have to say, was frustrating, specifically with regards to the island, because if the north wind is blowing, you don't get to go over there. Nobody can land on the island. So, you know, there were the odd times when I turned up and we had everything there, all the equipment, but we just couldn't get on the boat. But that's what makes it special. You do get to go over there, you really feel privileged. And basically filming on Skomer, we had some struggles in that we have a lot of kit, we have to use big long lenses, and obviously there's no cars on the island, so the cameraman and myself, we basically ended up taking all our equipment round in wheelbarrows. So I have the length and breadth of Skomer Island, wheeling huge bits of camera equipment in wheelbarrows. But that was, I mean, again, I'm walking along these paths with bluebells, literally swathes of bluebells either side of me. Fabulous. I think one of the most, well, the memory that I will take away forever was the night we went out to hear the shearwater. And we went out in our pajamas at about midnight and walked along the track away from the farm. And I had sort of heard and read a little bit about them, and I had in my imagination that these birds, you know, people used to think they were witches. So I had visions of witches flying around the island in the night sky on broomsticks, and then crash landing at my feet, this bundle suddenly appeared. And you have torches on special blue lights. Is it blue or red? I can't remember. But anyway, red lights. So don't frighten them, obviously. And just turning it round and seeing my first ever shearwater was just unforgettable. And the sound of them, and just the fact that they were everywhere coming in, one crash landing, the next crash landing, was just fantastic. Calling to each other to find and locate their burrows.
It's an experience you can't really explain to others, isn't it? It's kind of an encompassing experience, the sounds, the sights, and having one crash land into you is a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But it's not just, I guess, not just the species on Skomer Island. It's Pembrokeshire, this particular episode, and one of the species that I'm particularly proud of having on our coast is the choughs. You know, we've got a good population of choughs here, and you filmed that within the series as well.
Yes, so obviously there are basically two locations now in the British Isles where chough are still, well, they're flourishing as opposed to everywhere else, Cornwall and Pembrokeshire. And I mean, the conservation efforts in Pembrokeshire for chough are amazing. So while they're on Skomer, they're actually being conserved specifically on Ramsay Island, and that island is one that we feature, and we feature the wardens, the RSPB wardens that live on the island all through the year, and you know they are doing farming methods, particularly sheep, specifically to conserve chough. So chough used to be more widespread. They basically need quite soft soil, and you get that in Pembrokeshire because there's a bit of rain, but the farming that has sort of slightly pushed some of that soil out, you know, it's right down to the coastline, has slightly pushed them out. And on Ramsay, what they're doing is they're keeping the sheep to keep the grass short. So the chough have got these amazing, bright, sort of curved red beaks. And they can't get to the grubs in the soil if the grass is too long. So the sheep make it perfect. And because of their droppings, because of the sheep dung, you get dung beetles and other wonderful insects that the chough love to feed on. So it's all, everybody's happy.
Yeah, I just, you know, I've so many times spent on the coast on these steep cliffs right next to, exactly like you say, next to farmland, and the sound of a chough, and there you see them, bright red legs, bright red bill, absolutely amazing birds. So for people watching this or excited to watch this on Friday, I mean, firstly, why Pembrokeshire? Why these three locations? And what's the most important thing about celebrating these places?
Well, I think we're looking for locations when we choose these sort of programs where, as well as the wildlife, there are people that have been doing what they're doing for a long period of time, whether it's their forefathers and their, you know, ancestors, but things haven't changed massively. And, you know, obviously all of the regions, particularly the fens, you know, things have changed in terms of the wetlands there. But with Pembrokeshire, I think as well, because of the coastline and the currents, you've never been able to have that really big, intensive type of fishing industry. So you still get going out, the trout fishermen for lobster and such. But you know, we are looking for those people that have been farming in a certain way or carrying out their lives, but also for the wildlife that still have very, very special pockets of wildlife that, you know, are recognised, and people go there to try to see them. And it's great seals, whether it's the puffins, which are absolutely fabulous, the underwater marine life of Pembrokeshire. I mean, it's a really, really important part of our islands.
Absolutely. And where can people watch this? Obviously BBC Two, but what time? When's it coming out? Tell us.
Okay, this Friday, 3rd of July. It's 9 p.m. and it's on BBC Two. And then will be after that, a week after.
There we go. So for the next 3 weeks, is that right?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, absolutely not one to miss. Sally, thank you so much for coming on and sharing that. I'm sure many people will be putting that in their diaries right now. And yeah, thanks for taking time out your busy time.
Pleasure. Thank you, Lizzie.
See you, Sally. Bye.
Okay, bye.
There we are, everyone. Brand new series. Please tune in on Friday, 9 p.m. Not one to miss at all. And got a little bit of behind the scenes there as well. And you can learn more about it if you go onto the BBC iPlayer website to learn more about what you can expect. Absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to that. Now, a species that we perhaps haven't shed enough light on is one of my favourites, one of Sylvia's favourites, and she's about to tell you. It's, of course, the northern fulmar, an unmistakable, regurgitating, oily, fantastic white pelagic bird. Have a watch of this.
Northern fulmar. Personally, it's one of my favourite seabirds on this island, but now, sadly, one of the endangered ones in Europe. But here are some interesting facts about fulmars. The Norse used to call them foul gulls for their pungent smelling stomach oil, but it is in fact an evolutionary trait and works both as defensive tactics and mid-flight energy source. So when used to spray, it will gum up the wings of predator birds, causing them to plunge to their deaths, and they can also regurgitate it as an energy-rich resource they use for long flights or to feed their young. Fulmars are pelagic, which means that they live entirely at sea outside of their breeding months. And when they're hunting, as opposed to scavenging, they are ocean divers, plunging several meters under the water to nab prey, or plucking them out from just under the surface. They're one of the few bird species that have a well-developed sense of smell. They can use it to locate fish by the smell of fish oil rising to the surface of the water. They eat fish, squid, shrimp, carrion, refuse plankton, jellyfish. They'll often chase fishing ships in order to nab waste as well. They are very, very long-lived birds and can live up to 40 years in the wild. Fulmars reach sexual maturity anywhere between 6 and 12 years of age, and they are monogamous species. Pairs will generally return to the same nesting location every year. They create their nests on cliff sides, which are practically bare rock or at most a small depression or scrape lined with a little bit of grass or seaweed. They lay only one egg, and the incubation period takes about 50 days, and it then takes about 70 days from the moment the young hatches until it fledges. Fulmars, like some other seabirds, have this amazing gland above their nasal passage that excretes a saline solution to help them get rid of all the salt in the water they imbibe while feeding. This year we have 580 apparently incubating fulmar pairs on Skomer Island, which remarkably is practically the same as in 2018, with only 2 pairs more counted this year. Unfortunately, the population on Skomer has been decreasing since the 1990s, which goes with the trend across the whole Europe.
She put it perfectly. The northern fulmar. What more do you want, everyone? Yeah, it's a shame we haven't featured them enough, really, but we did see that lovely white chick of the northern fulmar from last week's episode. That beautiful kind of downy white colour. Yeah, absolutely wonderful there. So we're also every week we've been hearing from our Living Seas Wales team, and this week is no exception. We're going to be hearing from Laura Evans now, learning all about our wonderful coasts and what you can find on our coast, because is there anything better than heading out to the beaches and looking for shells and razor clams and seeing all the waders actually fiddling in the sand as well for them? So have a little listen to this. This is Laura Evans telling us all about the importance of our coasts.
Hi, my name is Laura Evans and I'm the Living Seas Wales Project Officer for the Wildlife Trust at South and West Wales. I'm sure you all enjoy a peaceful stroll along the shoreline, listening to the waves and feeling the sand between your toes. But if you look closer, there are so many signs of life that can be found along the strandline. No visit to the beach is complete without searching for shells, which come in all shapes, sizes and colours. Razor clams are easily recognisable by their long, narrow shell. You may find both halves of the shell attached to each other or separated like in this photo. During low tide, you can often find live limpets attached to rocks, but we also find their shells across the strandline. Crabs have to molt their shell in order to grow, and you may be lucky enough to find a complete shell washed up on the shore. This is a spider crab molt that I found on Newquay Harbour Beach, and last week a member of our Living Seas team spotted these crabs whilst walking along the strandline. Usually found in deeper waters, spider crabs do come to inshore waters during the summer months. Mermaid's purses are another treasure you can find along our shores. These leathery pouches are the egg cases of some species of sharks, skates and rays, and if you come across any on the beach, you can actually identify what species it came from. This is the egg case of the small spotted cat shark, which is also known as the lesser spotted dogfish. The egg case is typically around 3 to 8 centimetres long with curly tendrils, though as you can see from this photo, the tendrils are no longer attached. The mermaid's purses washed up on our shores are nearly always empty, but very rarely you may come across an egg case with the baby still inside, as you can see from this photo of the small spotted cat shark egg case. If a live embryo is inside, pop the egg case back in the sea and try to weigh it down so it doesn't wash on the shore again. If you do find mermaid's purses whilst you're exploring the shore, then report your finds to the Shark Trust. Just search for the Great Egg Case Hunt. Unfortunately, whilst searching for signs of wildlife along the shore, we often come across litter. Pieces of plastic, like the ones in this photo, are harmful as they can be ingested by marine animals. You can help by taking your litter home with you or by conducting a beach clean. Just make sure you have the correct protective gear like gloves and a litter pick. Thank you for exploring the shore with us today. Don't forget to share your strandline finds with us through our Living Seas Wales social media and website.
Oh, I mean, what is better than that? I've found many mermaids' purses along the coast. It's one of the best. It's like finding gold, isn't it, when you're out on the beach and you find those lovely mermaids' purses. Yeah, in fact, I found my biggest one January. It was a blonde ray mermaid's purse, which is one of the biggest ones we get here. It's about the size of my hand. So if you do get a chance, if it's safe to do so right now, do go out to the beaches and see what you can find, because there's plenty along our coast, especially with our kind of swells and our tides bringing in lots of exciting things. There's always stuff to look for. Now, I'm super excited to welcome our next guest. Her name is Maya Rose Craig. She's 18 years old. She's an ornithologist. She's just a fantastic young conservationist all round, really. I've been following her for a while, and her determination in conservation and her passion and dedication to it has not been unrecognised, and she's actually been given an honorary doctorate by Bristol University this year. She's the youngest person in the UK to have an honorary doctorate. I mean, how incredible is that? So she's with us here live right now. Hi Maya, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can. Oh, it's so good to see you. I know we had a few technical issues last week. I think the heat was making my phone melt.
Same. No.
So look, I'm constantly in awe of your dedication to conservation. You're very active on social media, but I kind of want to get to the root, kind of back in time. Talk to me about when you first began your passion for nature or doing your conservation work.
Well, in terms of my passion for nature, I don't know, I feel very lucky because my parents and my older sister are also like really avid bird watchers. So I've been going out literally since I was a baby. So bird watching and nature have always played like a massive role in my life, which is kind of why I got involved in all my conservation work. So I just really like birds, basically. And yeah, I've been doing various conservation projects for like 6 years now since I was 12. And I don't know, I just personally think it's really important to try and like save the stuff I really care about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, why? Such a silly question because I get it, but why birds? And in particular, why are you passionate about seabirds? I mean, have you seen any of the seabirds that are on Skomer before? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I mean, birds in general, I think especially when I was a kid, they just captured my imagination because I don't know, they're just so beautiful, and they can fly, which is amazing. And I think as like an access point to nature as well, they're really good because if you start looking, they're literally just everywhere. And there's always some birds to look at. And I think I don't know, I've just always really enjoyed watching them. And actually, sea watching is something like looking for seabirds is something that's grown on me over the years. Because when I was a kid, I did not like it at all. It was one of those things. It seemed to be like vile weather whenever we went to the coast, and it would be like tipping down with rain. Uh, and I was never very patient as a kid. But I think as I've gotten older, I don't know, there's something very satisfying about just seeing all these like beautiful seabirds like going over the ocean and just in their natural habitat, and I just think they're gorgeous. Um, and yeah, I have loads of amazing memories of various sea watching jaunts looking for like I don't know, shearwaters and snakes and the petrels. Yeah, I just love seabirds.
Yeah. So, I mean, I totally know what you mean. The best thing about bad weather is you're most probably going to get a good sighting of seabirds. It usually goes hand in hand, right? So yeah, raincoat on, off you go to the coast, I guess. But you've seen, a great variety. I was in the south. I was in Antarctica in February, and I myself saw some black-browed albatross. And I know you've seen them as well, right? Albatross seem to be a bit of a love for many people, but are they a love of yours as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, I just think albatrosses are so beautiful, but it's also part of one of my favorite memories of bird watching when I was a kid. Because when I was about 7, I was lucky enough to see one in the UK, a black-browed albatross, and it's just such an exciting memory for me. So it was one of these days where it just been tipping down with rain all day, and we all were a bit soggy and a bit miserable, and we just saw this gorgeous bird soaring towards us over the ocean, and I've never seen a bunch of like I don't know middle-aged blokes like jump around with so much like glee. Like it was great. It was such a good day.
I think that you kind of hit on a point there, and I'm gonna go into it because it's that almost stereotyping that many of us do about who should care about nature or who does love nature, and you being so young and so inspirational to so many young people. Why is it important for people like you to be inspired by birds and nature?
Um, I mean, for so many different reasons. I mean, I think that maybe I'm a bit biased because I love birds and nature, but I feel like everyone should have the opportunity to go out into the wild and really enjoy themselves and really have that connection with nature, which is why I do a lot of campaign work to do with like getting ethnic minority people out into the countryside. But also, like when I was a kid and when I was growing up, I never really saw anyone who looked like me, and I only knew like a handful of women or girls that were into birds, and it would have been so cool to have like a whole community in that sense to like hang out with and just like talk about our love of birds in the way that I feel like the internet's like facilitated not a lot more in the last few years.
Absolutely agree. And in the past few months, have you found you've been able to do that and reach out to a big community, especially with social media? But I think for me, I've seen a lot more people looking in their local areas or looking for the wildlife that's on their doorstep. So have you seen the same?
Yeah, definitely. I think people finally have the time and the motivation to want to go out in nature and connect with nature. And I think that there's been like a massive surge of interest where people are starting to realize that they really enjoy being out in green spaces. And actually, when they don't necessarily have access to them because the parks are shut or whatever, they realize that that's the kind of stuff they want to do and spend their time. And for me, it's been really nice seeing like a whole wave really interest in birds and nature.
And for anyone young who's watching, young or old, actually, what would be your bit of advice to inspire them about going out to Skomer or to see local wildlife or to see birds?
Um, I guess just that you don't need to have like any special skills or any special equipment to be a bird watcher. You just need to like go out and look at the birds, and it's such an amazing experience. And like I think bird watching is just something that everyone should try at least once in their life, because it's just for me it's just a really beautiful thing to do.
Couldn't agree more. You put it perfectly. So Maya, thank you so much for coming on live. Where can people follow you in your work?
You can follow me on Twitter at BirdGirlUK, or you can look up my blog, which is just called Bird Girl. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on today.
Absolutely. It's always a joy connecting with you, Maya, and I'll continue to follow your stuff, or hopefully we'll chat soon anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Maya.
No, bye.
Oh gosh, that girl is an absolute inspiration. And let me tell you, if you don't follow her on Twitter already, do follow her on Twitter, because she's very outspoken about, you know, areas that need to be addressed in conservation, and she's just an all-round fantastic young woman. So yeah, brilliant. Another live guest here. Right, what else have we got coming up? There's a group of mammals which I guess we haven't really touched on Skomer Island yet. But there's a number of scientists for a number of years that have been working on bats on Skomer Island. Of course, we have lots of bats here in the UK, but actually on Skomer Island itself, it's also very full with a number of smallest are pipistrelles and largest are great horseshoe bats on the island. So here's Rob Knott, who volunteered on the island for a number of years, telling us more about his project.
Hi everyone, my name's Rob. I'm a zoologist and science communicator, and last summer I had the amazing privilege to be long-term volunteer on Skomer between July and October. And I saw a lot of changing seasons and a lot of species coming and going while I was there, but one of the taxa that really grabbed me were bats. Bats are incredible organisms. They're the only true flying mammals in the world, and they use this amazing echolocation system to locate their prey. There's 17 species of breeding bat in the UK, and they're a really good indicator species of ecosystem health because they're very sensitive to environmental change, and that makes them very useful organisms for us to study. In Wales, there's 13 species of bat, and a lot of the work on bats that's been done on Skomer was done in the 1990s by Anna Sutcliffe, and there's been some sampling at the farm since, but I wanted to do an up-to-date look at what I could find on Skomer whilst I was there. So I used an anabat recorder. This is an amazing bit of kit which you can preset to turn on when it hears a bat, so you can put it out all over the island and see what you find. They're quite clunky bits of kit, so in order to make it more portable, I found an old tripod in the store and tied the anabat to that, and I put it out over the island, as you can see here. Being on the tripod made it very easy to carry it around the island, but it did look a bit funny, and several people did say to me over the summer that they thought it looked like some sort of NASA spacecraft, and I can see where they're coming from. So I had 7 sites, some of these more inland, like Morey Mere and North Ponds, to see if they were feeding over these ponds. And then I also had some more coastal sites as well, including one on the Lantern, which is on the far east of the island. I had to use ropes access to get in there. So yeah, quite a varied range of sites. So we put the anabats out, and I had to wait and see what bats it recorded over 4 nights at each site. And then I collected them in and displayed visually all the calls that had been recorded on spectrograms like these ones. So what these spectrograms essentially show is time against frequency. So every bat calls at a slightly different pitch and in a slightly different way, which makes these really distinctive call shapes. And that makes it very easy to ID a bat just by looking at these spectrograms. The highest activity on the island was over the ponds and also in North Haven as well. I identified 6 species for sure. Common pipistrelles and soprano pipistrelles, they're very common species which you might get over your garden at home. And then things like liselers and noctules as well. We got serotine bats, they're fairly uncommon, especially in South Wales, so that was very nice. But perhaps the most exciting thing we found was the greater horseshoe bat, and you can see a photo of that here. So the greater horseshoe bat is actually one of our largest UK species of bat. They have a wingspan of about 40 centimetres and this very distinctive horseshoe shaped nose. And it's thought that this shape helps focus sonar in the same way as the foil bit behind a torch bulb focuses a beam of light. They're incredibly rare though. There's less than 4,000 of them left in the wild because we've lost 90% of this population in the last 100 years alone. They're very, very easy to recognise vocally because they echolocate 82,000 Hz. That's very, very high even for a bat, and make these very distinctive warbling noises. Now I just wanted to play you some of those that we recorded in North Haven. It's a little bit hard to hear because it was very windy on some of the nights we recorded it in North Haven, very exposed. But you can kind of hear those warbling sounds. So we had 58 records of greater horseshoe bats, both on the ponds and also in North Haven as well. And we had so many in North Haven, overlapping each other and crisscrossing throughout the recordings, then we think we might have a maternity roost, which is a really significant finding. Maternity roosts can contain up to 1,000 females in the summer, which is really, really amazing when you consider there's less than 4,000 of them left in the wild. This is potentially a really significant roost site for this nationally rare species. So why are they doing so well on Skomer? So the main reason they're doing so well is the lack of disturbance. So there's very little light pollution, and greater horseshoes are usually very wary of light and will avoid it at all costs. So Skomer is ideal for them in that sense. It's also ideal because there's no agricultural practices on Skomer, so that means there's no pesticides. Pesticides are really bad for them because they remove a lot of their prey, and a lot of greater horseshoes that have died have sadly starved to death. So on Skomer, all these insects are still there. It's a really useful site for them. So Skomer is not just a diverse habitat for substantial bat population, it's also the unique site for a species of real national importance, a really critically rare species as well. Something for you to consider the next time you get to come to Skomer and experience Skomer's wildlife, not just the seabirds and the puffins and the seals, but the greater horseshoe bats as well.
Fantastic little video there from Rob Knott, and of course so important, as many of our bats are of course facing many serious threats, not just with the decline in habitats as habitat destruction accidentally or due to new builds, which is a massive issue, but actually the food that they eat as insectivores, also our insect numbers are also facing massive issues now. So yeah, our bats are in a lot of trouble, and we've seen big numbers of decline, especially in our bigger species, our greater horseshoe bats. Yeah, so really, really important, and nice to celebrate the bats on Skomer Island. We haven't done that yet. So anyway, I'm desperate to talk to our lovely wardens who are with us live. Sylvia and Nathan, it's so good to see you. Hello, bonjour, Shamai. Are you there?
Hello again.
Hello.
Tell me, how are you? What's been going on? You're in the library today. Is it too windy?
It's slightly windy. It's not too bad out there. It's allowing us to do our puffin watch today, which we have had to delay for a couple of days due to the wind, but it's good enough today.
Yeah, it's quite an intense day actually. So we started at 5 a.m. Actually, we got up at 4 a.m. to get ready for 5 a.m. and then we've been watching puffins in our study plot, bringing in fish to feed their chicks since 5 a.m. We're now only having a short break between 12 and 2 when it's quiet, and then we're going to go back to that and watch them until 9:30 p.m. tonight. So it's a full-on day, and of course apart from that we're still doing our productivity of razor bulls and guillemots, and then the other tasks. So yeah, it's been quite busy, but it's enjoyable, and the weather's improved, so that's good.
So I have a bit of a question. Sorry, everyone has asked questions. We'll get to yours shortly, but out of interest, do you count the number of sand eels that the puffins are bringing in at all, with photographs and things to measure kind of food success, or do you just kind of, is that why you monitor the chicks primarily, to check health and development rate?
Yeah, exactly. So we mainly do that, as you say, via the chicks. It has been done in previous years in terms of counting how many sand eels or what other species are being brought in as well. That's done ongoing every year as part of the guillemot project that's done. So the fish that are being brought in by the guillemots are monitored.
But yeah, for puffins it's quite difficult because we're looking at them from quite a distance, and they're so fast that we would not be able to tell how many fish they're bringing in. It's just instant, a second, in and out.
Yeah, got to find the burrow marker and know which one it's going into, and yeah, tick it off basically.
Yeah.
And you're two people. I mean, blinking heck, that's a lot. And we were just watching on the live cameras how they're launching in so quickly. They're very good landers, but they're not the most elegant flyers, as we know. Right, many questions. First, I'll start with some hellos and comments. We've got hello from Keith Alexander. He said, thank you for sharing. Gail Stubbs should be on Skomer right now, sad face. We've got hello from Christine Allen from Leicester. So lovely and relaxing to watch. Oh, fantastic. Jason Davis in Milford has given us a wave, only around the corner from you guys. Jean Phillips, Ian Edwards, Susan Irving, Vinnie Bone. Hello and good afternoon from Meryl Bonnell. Hello from Leslie Duncan, watching from Aberdeen. Hello from Catherine Burkitt's, watching from Boston in Lincolnshire. Bonnie is watching from Wisconsin. Hello again. We've got Gilmore Davis coming in to us from Peru, which is really nice. Righty-ho. Okay, let's get on to some of those questions. We've got one here about dolphins. We haven't touched on dolphins for a wee while. But Chris Bacon asks, have you seen any dolphins?
Not recently, but the reason why is because we've been not really sea watching much. We've been quite busy with everything else. I mean, I did go out to sea watch once a few days ago when we had some really strong westerlies, but that was mostly to look out for some rarities. But it was too bumpy to, of course, spot any dolphins. They like nice flat calm sea.
Often we'd see them when we're waiting at the welcome point to welcome the visitors, and we'd see them just by the entrance to North Haven, really. But we're not doing that this year, so mainly looking down the scope this year. So we don't see as much of the sea. Good of it.
Fabulous. Okay, another question's come in. How many shearwaters and puffin burrows do you actually monitor, and how long does it take to monitor? That's a very good question.
It's a really good question. Yeah. So there are sort of two studies that we're doing. So we're looking into the 100 burrows of bank shearwaters within the study plot here in North Haven, and this is to establish their productivity, so how well they're doing in the season, during the season. And then we also have the study plot count. So we have 18 plots, which each one of them is 1,000 meters square big, and then we'll go and play calls of bank shearwaters into each burrow within those plots across the whole island. And last year we monitored 4,500 burrows nearly. It takes quite some time. Wow. I mean, to do those, depending on the number of staff that are available to go out there and to play those calls into the burrows, it can take up to a week more or less. Whereas the other one, so the productivity one, it takes several months, because you first need to establish the 100 occupied burrows. Then you have to check if they've got an egg, look at the adults, if they are the returning birds. So we're looking out for the rings on the legs. And then you have to return again to see if the egg has hatched. So if the chick has hatched, and then look at the development. So potentially again later on to see how it's doing, if it's still there, if it's alive, until it fledges basically. So it starts in April more or less, when they start laying their eggs, into August, maybe sometimes September even, if there are any chicks left.
Yeah, I mean, we throw away the term monitoring too often, I think, because it's just like, oh, just do a bit of monitoring. And then you realise it's hours of work, and there's many different stages to it. 4,500 barrows, blinking heck, that is a lot of holes. Okay, and we've got another question. Do fulmars greet each other by rubbing their bills or beaks together, like puffins? And then in brackets, it's got billing. So do they?
No, they don't. I was actually debating whether to imitate the call that they make, but I don't think I'm going to do that, because that's too
Sylvia.
So when they greet each other, they'll make this sound.
Yeah, it's kind of a jostling, less of a billing, more of a jostle.
More of a gentle greet. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, could you say that the vocalizations are the way they greet each other as opposed to that bill clapping?
Yeah, the vocalization, and when you look at them, their throat somehow enlarges as well. It goes like quite big, and you can tell that they're greeting each other, because it's so passionate, and they're very vocal, and they move quite a lot as well. So it's very interesting.
Oh, I love fulmars. I think other people love fulmars as well. Trisha Clark says, wow, 40 years in monogamous. Trisha, you're talking about the fulmars there. Suzanne Croft loves the bats, as do I. Jonathan Russell said the bat video and information was awesome, which is really, really lovely to see. So, I mean, I could talk about these questions all day long, but we don't actually have the time. But Wardens, tell me, we are in the season now. We've talked about kind of Skomer Live as a series. We'll be wrapping up in 3 weeks' time, so on the 22nd at 1 p.m. on the Wednesday. But in that time, what can we expect to see now as the season changes again to the next step?
We can expect to see more Manx shearwater chicks and different ages as they develop. So that's exciting. We're just starting to get more seals building up. Potentially we could get the first seal pup born in July. There is occasionally one or two in late July, but we can see their numbers building up definitely as they haul out on the beaches.
And then there's the puffins that are going to start leaving soon, unfortunately. It's always so sad when they're gone. You get very annoyed when they poo all over your windows. You wash them, then it happens all over again, like within hours, and then you miss that because it's not there anymore. But yeah, they're going to start leaving soon. Like, we've seen quite a few pufflings sticking out, poking their heads out already from the burrows. One earlier today, as we were watching them bringing the fish in, was out there stretching the wings and flapping and basically getting ready to leave very soon. So yeah, the next 3-4 weeks, and then they're gonna be mostly gone.
So soon. And come on, when is that egg? I'll sit on the shearwater. Come on, what's happening with that? Because you predicted either this week or last week, perhaps next week we'll have a check.
Last week is good.
Yeah.
I think we should have a poll. We should have I don't know, start betting how many days or weeks.
We do not support gambling here. Right, do let us know. So I mean, if it was to happen, it would be literally over the next week or so. Is that right in saying? I mean, we don't know when the egg was laid, but it's about now.
Yes, it could be later than that, but expect it any day now.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers are crossed. So off you go now today. Are you going to do more puffin monitoring or puffin watching?
Yeah, starting again at 2, so 3 minutes to go.
3 minutes, right? In that case, off you go. Lovely to chat to you again, and we'll see you again next week. Yeah.
See you next week.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Lizzie.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, love it. They're literally 3 minutes launching straight with their scopes and their binoculars to the wick. That's all we've got time for today, guys. Another jam-packed show. What a fantastic one. We've had bats, we've had coasts, we've had all sorts. Fulmars, of course. And at the beginning of the episode, if you remember, I showed you a little clip, and it was a clip of what happens next. We had all those puffins in that scene around that burrow, and we had a non-breeding female. Have a look at what actually happens. It's, of course, a very natural thing we see in puffins, but it's not the most polite interaction. This puffin just does its thing all over another puffin. Yeah, I mean, you've got to love them. And as Sylvie was saying, they poo all over your windows, but we love them for it. We absolutely love them for it. I'm not sure how that other puffin was feeling. I like to think we threw you a little bit there with that non-breeder. Thought because something else was going to happen. But yeah, just puffins being puffins. This is why you need to watch the live cameras all day long. Righty-ho then, everybody. Again, a massive thank you for your support, for tuning in every single week. We'll be back again next week at 1 p.m. We're going to be bringing you perhaps some shorted owl updates, perhaps some puffling updates, and some more live guests, and of course a check-in with those fantastic wardens on the island as well. If you are loving the series, don't forget to donate to the Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales. Show your support, show your love for all the wildlife on the island, and we'll see you again, same time next week. Bye!